We're starting with the Wall Street Journal. This is a report that the US secretly sent a lot of cash to Iran, and apparently it's looking rather suspicious.
A plane load of cash, that's what the Wall Street Journal reports on its front page. Stuart, Washington secretly organized an airlift of $400 million in cash of various currencies to Tehran last January. Why various currencies? Well, the reason being that any transaction with US dollars to Iran is considered illegal. So this airdrop actually had euros and Swiss francs. Now, the problem is this coincides with the release of 4 American detainees in Iran. The White House says the money drop was reimbursement plus interest demanded by Tehran for a failed arms deal dating back to 1979 when the Shah deposited this sum of over $1 billion in a Pentagon trust fund for fighter jets.
And of course, the White House reacting, the Obama administration being accused, though, here, inevitably, from what you just said, of paying a ransom.
Well, the State Department did not heed advice from the Justice Department that it would look suspicious. That's what the New York Daily News reports. The White House Secretary Josh Earnest obviously denied that it was a, quote, ransom payment. Moreover, the White House says Barack Obama never hid this fact. He was very open about the fact that this was a repayment for an old debt. Now, the Republicans, of course, have jumped on this and they've questioned the suspicious timing and say it really does look like a ransom paid to free those detainees, and it would violate a U.S. policy, which is that they should never pay hostage takers.
Continue to Syria now. We talked about earlier, of course, a battle for Aleppo intensifying there. It's prompted some very, very strongly worded opinion pieces in the papers today.
Well, let's start with The Guardian, The Guardian editorial, which says Aleppo residents are paying the price for failed Western policies. The Syrian war is the worst, quote, human rights catastrophe of our time, the editors say, in particular taking aim at Western governments. Much the same is seen in another opinion piece by Roger Boys, who is a writer for the British paper The Times. This article was reprinted in the Australian. He says the Aleppo battle is becoming a Sarajevo of the 21st century. Whatever the outcome in Syria is, it would be a humiliation for the West because we've linked arms with Putin, and in doing that, we're telling the world that we're abandoning Syria because it's too difficult.
And that fight against the Islamic State group is prompting now some unprecedented discussions in Germany. Now, this is about a World War II legacy, isn't it?
It's very historic discussions indeed, Stuart, one that's actually dividing German society. Now, after last month's successive terror attacks in Germany, Angela Merkel has launched a counter-terrorism plan that notably includes training the army to help police in dealing with domestic threats. Essentially, this would overturn a post-war pacifist ban on the presence of the army on the domestic front in Germany. And those on the left say it would mean that they criticize it, saying it would mean militarizing Germany's terrorism solution. But conservative lawmakers say it's necessary to revise that policy because we are dealing with a new and very real threat. Now, unlike in France, where it's becoming very commonplace to see soldiers in the streets, for many Germans, it will be a painful reminder of the Nazi regime when the army actually served as the state's police. This writer in Die Welt defends Merkel's plan, saying it's necessary because, firstly, training and equipping police would be too costly. And secondly, it's clear now that Germany's internal and external threat are no longer separate.
Going to talk about the Olympics now, beginning, of course, tomorrow in Brazil. Been plagued, though, by a whole host of problems, hasn't it?
Well, blame the media for that, Stuart, at least according to the Washington Post, which looks at how nearly every Olympic city comes under scrutiny right up to the last minute. The Beijing 2008 Games were plagued by allegations of smog and pollution. Even the Vancouver Winter Games in 2010 were plagued by worries over a lack of snow. So the Washington Post says it turns out that the media love hyping the problems up because really who wants to read that preparations are going smoothly?
Oh, I see. It's always our fault. But the IOC, ever so forward-thinking, has already announced actually new sports. This is for the 2020 Tokyo Games. But not everyone is thrilled about this.
Well, it seems a little incongruous. Among those new sports, surfing and skateboarding. Skateboarding can be understood, but I'm not sure about surfing. It's part of the IOC's attempt to attract more young people to the Games. But some surfers and skateboarders say the two sports are just too cool for the Olympics. One surfer said it's more of an art form than a sport. And, they're sports that are historically part of an anti-establishment counterculture, which really explains why many of them are not happy about this decision. But one person interviewed in this Wall Street Journal article does say, well, the financial benefits won't be so bad.
That's certainly probably true. Young people getting involved in the Olympics is one way forward, perhaps, anyway. Thank you very much to